Hey everybody, it's DK, visionary co-founder of Burn Bootcamp, and I'm so glad you're here today with us on the Burn Bootcamp podcast. We're going to talk to you today about practicing the art of active listening. As a leader of an organization with thousands of people and hundreds of thousands of members, if I wasn't a good listener, we would never get here, okay? And I wasn't always a good listener. And I want to tell you the story about why I wasn't a good listener and how that pain of thinking that I was right in every situation and just talking at people rather than building the business with people it didn't last for a long time, but it definitely is a memory in my emotional bank that I will never forget because it showed me how to listen. And then I'm going to talk with you about mechanisms, tips, principles around listening, around active listening, and just how I think about it. And also to share with you a tool that we use in Burn Bootcamp to make this scalable, right? And I invite you to use this tool in your business and your family. It's called the feedback loop, and I'll go into that in a little bit. But active listening is really hard, right? It's really hard because here's the psychology behind why it's really hard, because we all want to be a contributor to the group. Like that, it's baked into our human DNA. Is like when we have a group, a village, and we have a tribe and survival is on our mind, what we have to do is we've got to play a role, like much like a basketball team. You've got to play your role. The point guard cannot try to post people up unless he has a mismatch, but there's caveats. But for those of us, generally speaking, the point guard's not posting up. He's not going to the block and saying, give me the ball, because that's not the role that they're in. If you're doing that and your coach is like, dude, you're supposed to be bringing up the ball, not posting up, then you're not listening, okay? So listening is a skill, and it's a skill of emotional intelligence, or EQ. And I'll tell you that there's two types of intelligence, generally speaking. There's EQ and there's IQ. IQ is, the classic Albert Einstein, neuroscientist, physics, Neil deGrasse Tyson mindset, where it's like, I'm just really smart. Elon Musk's of the world, where like cognitively they get mathematics, they get physics, they, they're just technically smarter. Okay. So that's like the technical side of the world. Now, what makes the world go round is community and people and human connection. And that's EQ, or emotional intelligence, and listening falls into emotional intelligence. And from my perspective and my observations, if you're trying to make progress and be successful in life, yeah, it's super helpful to have a high IQ. Don't get me wrong, but I know plenty of people that I'm thinking about right now that I will not name out of respect for them, who cannot fight their way out of a happiness paper bag because they don't know how to communicate with the people around them. They don't know how to be a contributor to the group overall, right? So then their isolated contribution to the group is to be the one who creates analysis by paralysis, or paralysis by analysis. I think I misspoke there, but they overthink everything. Okay, they overthink everything, and technically wanting to be right because they do have that high IQ. And a lot of times they probably are right, but truth has three kinds, right? Three kinds of truth. Okay, there's the physics truth, the science truth, which is high IQ oriented. Okay, there's that truth. There's personal truth, like religion is a great example of that. We won't go there, but that's a great example of it, where like no matter what religion you are, that's your truth. And you could not let anyone else argue with what your truth is, nor should they, because that's not their truth to argue with. That's your truth. And then there's the manufactured truth, which is the political truth. And we won't go there either. Those are two things I don't want to talk about on this podcast. That's not why we're here. You can go to Patrick Bet David for that. But what I do want to do is just outline that there are different truths. And if you understand the physical truth, okay, well then high IQ, you're probably going to be right most of the time. But if I'm talking about personal truth and being able to relate to people through the lens of their own personal truths, right? Now I'm on this side of EQ. And that's what listening is all about, is hearing people's personal truths and then being able to get clarification on those personal truths, and then being able to understand what their perspective actually is and being able to acknowledge them, show appreciation, show a sense of how important you think they are, and a sense of respect for the personal truth that they have, despite the fact that you might disagree. Now, this is what high EQ is. It's a self-awareness. It's a social awareness and a self-awareness. Okay. So 2015, we just start Burn Bootcamp. We are 3 years into the business. We just start our franchise process, okay? We're going crazy. We did 200 awarded territories in the first 18 months. That, just to give you context, is like 99th percentile of any franchise that's ever existed in the history of ever, okay? And we're a young group of professionals. We're really sharp, we're really smart, but we're also inexperienced at the time. And so as a leader, a sense of panic sets in. So I've got like this IQ that's typically, I've taken a bunch of tests. It's in like the 115 to 120 mark, okay? Not that high, right? I think the average IQ is just below 100. And then, like 110 is, pretty good. Like okay. So I can understand first principle physics. I can't do it, but I can understand it. But then on this emotional scale over here, I've always been a super high EQ person. Being a leader of sports teams in which I wasn't the most skilled person in the room always gave me a spot on the team because I was a team leader. I'm finishing drills first. I'm showing up first. I'm working the hardest. I'm setting the tone knowing that my team is watching me and they're going to follow suit. Okay. That's part of emotional intelligence. So I can put these two things together and, that's probably some recipe, a little bit of DNA, also a little bit of coming from the gutter, coming from the ditch, being 12 feet down when everybody else is at the starting line and needing to get out of that gutter. I needed to find the differentiation. I needed to find how to treat people better, how to gain a community, how to gain influence, how to gain respect. So inherently I've got a little DNA, all right? And then, but a lot of life experience out of the needing, the longing, the wanting for that respect, that when you combine those two things together, now you get these leadership traits that I have, and then you have the opportunity to refine them, okay? So Burn took off, and I had no idea how to listen when it was first taking off. We get about halfway through 2015, toward the end of 2015, start the media company, Burn Media, okay? Burn Media is not even a company yet. It's just the advertising arm of Burn Bootcamp, okay? Ran by our now VP of Burn Media, Meredith Bird. At the time, she was the director of marketing for Burn Bootcamp. So us 8 people at the time who are figuring out how to get our 200 gyms open and get them to profitability, to uphold our fiduciary responsibility to our franchise partners that we've just partnered with. We've got to get shit done. Excuse my language, but that's what we do. GSD, get shit done. Okay, so we sit at a table and I don't like the way that we're progressing. I don't like the way that they're communicating with me. I don't like the way they're getting the urgency. I'm a very urgent in the moment, but patient in the long run person. Okay, so I want to get stuff done now. Little things mean a lot. We got to get the little things done faster, speed it up 3 times. How do we get it done faster? How do we gain more progress? Okay, this is my mindset then. It's my mindset now. I didn't listen. What I did is the classic jar in the pebbles and the rocks metaphor. Have you ever seen this one? All right, guys, we've got some big tasks we got to get done. These are rocks. We've got these little tasks that have to get done. They're important. These are pebbles. And then we've got all the swirl, all the sand in the middle of it. And that's the sand. And if you put the big rocks in first, then you put the pebbles in, okay, and then you put the sand in, you can fit more in the jar. If you put the sand in first and then the pebbles and then the big rocks are last, the big rocks aren't going to fit in the jar at the end. So the metaphor is you could get more done if you are focused on rocks, pebbles, sand, rather than sand, pebbles, rocks. Meaning like, what are the needle moving things that we need to get done that are actually going to create results for us, okay? And I wasn't necessarily getting that from a young, inexperienced group at the time. Okay. So I get frustrated with it. Instead of asking them, hey, why do I feel like I'm not getting what I need from this group right now today? Can somebody tell me, are you getting what you need? Do you guys have the tools, the resources, the knowledge, the capabilities, the understanding, the awareness? Do you have it? Because if not, tell me. That's my job, is to communicate that vision. Instead of doing that, which is what a great leader does, and a leader with high EQ asks a lot of questions to get perspective and understanding and clarity around the mindset of the team. A bad leader will get up on a whiteboard and will go around the room and will say, all right, tell me your rock. And I'm going to write it down, and I'll be like, yeah, I like that, but it could be better if we did this. And I would add some other element to what they thought that had nothing to do with what was on their mind. I was, in a sense, dictating what their rock for the week was going to be. And I got to like the third person in the very first time I ever did this, okay? Get to the third person, and it was Meredith Burden. I said, all right, Meredith, what's your rock? All confidently, right? And turn around, I start writing on the board, and I, being a high EQ person, I can feel energy. I'm very in tune with that. And as soon as I turn around, I could feel eye rolls. I could feel a sense of like deflation. I could feel a sense of, dude, we hate this. This is not our idea of working together in a championship culture as a team to get to the collective outcome when you sit there and dictate what I'm going to do for the week on a whiteboard and you don't include me in the process. Okay. I literally I turned around as soon as I felt the energy from eye rolls, and I said, Mayor, you hate this, don't you? Just like that. And literally I think it was 8 people at the time, all 8 people, they had their pen, they had their pencil, they had their little notebook. I go, ugh. And a sigh of relief to be like, thank the Lord, the dictator DK is aware that he is just impressing upon us his short-term urgency despite our desires, the challenges that we're facing, and the desires that we have. And so that to me was an eye-opening moment. Okay. And here's what I did. In the moment, as a leader, I pivoted and I said, okay, here's what we're going to do, guys. What you're going to do is come every week, and you're going to tell the group exactly where we're at, what we're doing to get where we're going. And we are going to have a healthy discussion and a healthy debate about that as a group. And I'm not going to do anything but ask questions. And I'm going to sit back and I'm just going to ask you clarifying questions to understand your perspective. If I do not agree with the direction that you want to go, and if that's not alignment with the direction of the company, we will have a one-on-one meeting outside of this meeting, and we will discuss what that looks like, okay? So just a quick story between what not to do and what to do when it comes to the act of listening. And so I realized that this is going to be a perpetual problem if I don't create a system for it, or a structure or a strategy. And a system is a strategy that works for a very long time, and you don't necessarily have to blow it up, rebuild it, and fix it. It's called the feedback loop, okay? And I'm going to walk you through the feedback loop quickly because I want you to have this tool. It's a business tool in the sense that I'm using it most often, but also I use this in my household with Morgan, who's also the CEO and co-founder of our business, with my children. You can find me at any given moment. If I'm talking to somebody, it's in the framework of this feedback loop. Okay, so it has 5 pieces to it. The first piece is, hey, how was that? Notice there's a question mark at the end of that. That can mean anything. Hey, how did it go last night at the dinner? Hey, how was the meeting? Hey, how was that camp you just trained? Whatever that is up to you. Okay, so how was that is number 1. Okay, and you let them go and you let them tell you kind of how that was. What was a good part of that? What was a part of that could get better? Because the point of entering into the feedback loop is for both sides to walk away from the conversation at the end of it being better, right? So you want to say, how was that? Get one thing that was good, one thing that was great, and then one thing that, is self-acclaimed to be critical. You want them to critique themselves. Why? So then, therefore, you don't have to do it. So after they finish that and you get a good and you get a opportunity, then you're going to say, would you like my feedback? ? How many times has somebody been resistant to you, like coming at them? Like you come at them, you just tell them your feedback and you didn't ask them. That's like going up to somebody's door at their house and just busting down the door without knocking and saying, hey, can I come in? So knock and ask politely if you could come in, rather than just busting the door down. You bust the door down, you're going to get pistols pointed at you, right? Like if you knock on the door and you're very polite, you're going to get invited in to sit on the couch. Okay. So that's number 2 is, would you like my feedback? Okay. Number 3 isn't a question as much as it is, because now you're going to be able to say your statement. You've got that permission. You got a foot in the door to the house to give your feedback. Then it's from my perspective, ... Because what you don't want to do is say, you are this, you are that. You don't want to tell somebody else. What you want to do is give them your perspective, meaning that, hey, here's the way I observed it. This could be right. This could be wrong. But from my perspective, you told me you'd like my feedback. From my perspective, here it is. Now, here's how this works so well, because if you do the first question right, how was that? And you get something great, you can acknowledge that greatness, but you also know the opportunity that they have, and you know that they know the opportunity that they have. So 99 times out of 100 from my perspective, ... is the same exact feedback that they said anyways. So you don't have to be the bad guy. And that's such a great thing. You don't have to come at anyone. You can hold their hand and walk with them, and you can agree that there is an opportunity for them in this little world. Now, the caveat of the 1% of time when somebody is completely delusional, has no self-awareness, they have no idea what opportunities they have, that's usually because they're not self-aware. Not that they're delusional, not that they're not self-aware. It's usually because they don't care, that they just don't care, usually. Okay, step number 4. Okay, so after you, how was that? Would you like my feedback? From my perspective. 4th question, 4th step, is that fair? Right? Let them tell you that you weren't off base. Hey, is that off base? Is that fair? Am I tracking here? Right? That type of questioning is basically confirming that what they just said, what you just said, they actually agree with. Hey, is that fair? Do you agree with this? Is this something that you can attach to, that you can grab onto? Is this something you can own now? And if they say yes, which they do 99% of the time, if you've done this process the right way, if they say yes, then the next step is number 5 is, okay, great. Now, how is this going to show up in the future? Again, another question. How is this going to show up in the future? And what you're doing here is you're painting a picture of some better place in time where you two can come together to meet, to talk about this feedback loop, for you to high-five that person and said, hey, that feedback, that opportunity that you said that you had, I gave you some feedback from that, from my perspective. You agreed with that feedback. You just went and you turned this around. And that was last week. You turned this around already, or that was an hour ago and you've already turned this feedback around. Man, high five. What a great job you just did right there. Gives you an opportunity for real servant, congratulatory leadership. And I'll leave you with this, that clarity is power. So that 5th question, what are we going to do in the future? How is this going to show up? How does this manifest? When's the next time that you're going to use this feedback? Any line of questioning like that, what you're really doing with that is you're getting clarity back from them. How many times as a leader or a parent have you said something to your children? You didn't follow this process. You were more of the dictator version of Devin rather than the listening version of Devin. And you said, hey, I want this to be done. Do you get it? Do you understand it? And they're like, yep, got it. And then they go do it and they think that they're doing it, but then they come back and it was not even close to how you had visioned it in your head. You follow what I'm saying? So you've got to get clarity from that person, and you've got to say, at what point in time in the future can we expect these results to be turned around? What can I expect? And then get them to say exactly what you meant in step number 3 when you gave them the feedback from your perspective that they then agreed with. Then make sure that what they're agreeing with is actually what you said. You follow what I'm saying? All right, that's the feedback loop. That's a quick and dirty version in like a few minutes, but I wanted to leave that with you because this is a tool that you can use at home, in the office, in the gym, as a trainer, literally a communication tool anybody can use, rooted in personality psychology, knowing that if you follow these 5 steps, you're on your way to a higher EQ. Now, here's what I believe. Last thing I'll leave you with. I started this session by talking about EQ versus IQ. You can't get your IQ any better. There's no evidence that suggests any brain games or brain teasers or quick fixes or mesmerization or hypnotizing or not. There's no way to get an IQ better that we know of today. An EQ can grow. So for those of you that are like, hey, maybe I just don't feel the sharpest up here. Maybe I just don't understand things. Maybe your EQ is a little bit lower. Guess what? Who cares? IQ is such an arbitrary number. IQ is such a who gives a crap number. Like, it doesn't matter. What really matters in life is EQ, is how you treat other people, how self-aware that you are, and how aware of your environment you are. And more importantly, the feedback loop that I just explained is the interaction between you and the environment that you're in, so that those two things are symbiotic. Make sense? Say yes. All right, y'all. Thanks for being here. Subscribe on Apple Podcast. Hey, if this isn't the best health and fitness podcast on the planet, I don't know what is. You got to show me a better one. You got to show me a better one. I don't see it. We need to hear you guys. I want to hear you in the reviews. Let us know. 5 stars only, though, obviously. Obviously, if you have a 1 star, just DM me. Don't put it on Apple. We don't want that on Apple, do we? We want to know your feedback, you guys. Hey, we love you. Thanks for being here. If you're on Spotify as well, thanks for being on Spotify. But we love our Apple reviews. So head over to Apple, subscribe, give us a review. We love you guys. Keep moving. 2 claps on 2. 1, 2.